Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into a really important topic, money laundering. And more specifically, we'll be discussing the European Union's first anti-money laundering directive, commonly known as AMLD1. This directive is the cornerstone of the EU's fight against financial crime, and understanding it will help you grasp the broader picture of how the EU is working to safeguard financial systems across Europe. So let's break it down. Before we dive into the details of the EU Anti-Money Laundering Directive 1, let's first clarify what money laundering is. Simply put, money laundering is the process of making illegally obtained money appear legitimate. Criminals usually do this through complex financial transactions that disguise the origin of the money, making it hard for authorities to trace. Money laundering is not just about drugs or organized crime. It can be used to hide proceeds from a wide range of illegal activities, from tax evasion to corruption. In response to this growing threat, the European Union introduced a series of anti-money laundering directives to fight this global issue, with the first one, AMLD1, being adopted back in 1991. This was a significant step in setting the legal framework for EU member states to follow when tackling money laundering. AMLD1 aimed to protect the EU financial system from criminal abuse, align with international standards, and improve cooperation between EU states. AMLD1 was introduced as part of the EU's commitment to implementing the recommendations of the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF. The FATF is an intergovernmental body that sets international standards on combating money laundering and the financing of terrorism. So, what exactly did AMLD1 set out to do? Let's break down some of its key provisions. First, AMLD1 required EU member states to set up national laws that would criminalize money laundering activities. This meant that each country in the EU had to ensure that financial institutions like banks and insurance companies would report suspicious transactions. Second, it established the requirement for customer due diligence, which meant that financial institutions had to verify the identity of their clients. This process helped ensure that they weren't unknowingly facilitating illegal activities. Third, the directive put the spotlight on international cooperation. It established the need for countries to work together, sharing information and coordinating efforts to tackle money laundering at the cross-border level. And finally, AMLD1 also put measures in place to help combat the financing of terrorism. By monitoring suspicious financial transactions, the directive aimed to stop criminal organizations from using legitimate financial systems to fund illegal activities. Now you might be wondering, how did AMLD1 actually impact the financial world? Well, for starters, it brought financial institutions into the fight against money laundering in a big way. Banks and other financial service providers had to improve their internal controls and become much more vigilant. They couldn't just turn a blind eye to suspicious transactions anymore. AMLD1 also helped shape the way financial institutions report suspicious activity. Banks were required to have Know Your Customer or KYC processes in place. This meant that they needed to verify the identity of their clients and understand the nature of their business relationships. As a result, there was a significant shift in how financial institutions viewed and managed risks. Compliance departments grew in importance, and financial professionals became more focused on detecting money laundering activity and preventing it before it occurred. While AMLD1 was groundbreaking at the time, it wasn't perfect. The financial world was rapidly evolving, and so were the techniques used by criminals to launder money. Some of the weaknesses of AMLD1 included insufficient detail on customer due diligence procedures and a lack of focus on politically exposed persons, people who are or have been entrusted with prominent public functions. Furthermore, the directive didn't fully address the rise of more complex financial instruments like shell companies and offshore accounts, which were being used to facilitate money laundering at the time. Despite these challenges, AMLD1 laid the groundwork for future EU anti-money laundering legislation. It was the first step toward a broader and more comprehensive approach, eventually leading to more robust directives such as AMLD4 and AMLD5, which expanded on the principles of AMLD1 and addressed the shortcomings of the original framework. AMLD1 also helped establish a culture of compliance within the EU financial sector and encouraged international collaboration. It's important to note that while AMLD1 was the first directive, the fight against money laundering is an ongoing process. The EU continues to evolve its regulations to keep pace with new risks and emerging threats. So there you have it. The EU Anti-Money Laundering Directive 1 was a key milestone in the EU's efforts to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. It set the stage for stronger laws, better cooperation between countries, and more rigorous controls in the financial sector.